Outlaw Law is brought to you by Whitaker and Hamer, attorneys and counselors at law. Your law firm for life.
The Outlaw Lawyers, Josh Whitaker and Joe Hamer, Whitaker and Hamer Law Firm, where you can find a managing partners, practicing attorneys here in North Carolina. Cassandra Nicholas joining us from the Morehead City office. Again, attorney with Whitaker and Hamer. Offices located Raleigh, Garner, Clayton, Goldsboro, Fuquay, Varina, Gastonia, and as we mentioned before, Morehead City. If you've got a legal situation, you can always call the firm and get answers to your questions. 800-659-1186. That's 800-659-1186. Leave your contact information, briefly what the call's about. An attorney with Whitaker and Hamer will be in touch. Again, the number 800-659-1186. And you can always email your questions to the show, and that's questions@theoutlawlawyer.com. Josh?
So, we were talking about it before we went to the break. The U.S. Supreme Court, there was a group of Republican attorney generals who had filed a motion with the Supreme Court regarding Title 42, which has been in the news a lot lately. Cassandra, I didn't tell you we were going to talk about this. Do you know what that is off the top of your head?
Sort of.
All right. Yeah. So Title 42 was a policy that allowed Border Patrol, if they found folks across the border illegally because of COVID and this Title 42, they could release them back across the border. And so that ended. It was a COVID area regulation. Biden's administration ended it. And some Republican attorney generals on the state level were trying to get the Supreme Court to say it should still be a thing. And the Supreme Court denied it. And in their denial, they kind of started talking about how COVID era policies by governors and the federal government to restrict freedoms, we are probably going to look back on it and see that it was probably one of the worst times for civil liberty in I don't know, in our lifetimes anyway.
Hopefully that's as bad as it gets, right? Hopefully
we remember, because I had kind of forgotten. And then at the same time,
you're living in it, right? Like if you're living in it every day, it's hard to like step back and objectively. And every day, man, it's like we went further. Like the further it went, the more accepted. That's almost scary, man. Because like you weren't revolting, you weren't out in the streets.
I revolted in small ways.
Where your own ways. Yeah, we did do some micro revolts.
Well, there was a lot of, I said in the last segment, so we're sitting here at Shady's today, and Shady's was a bar that opened literally like 90 days before Governor Cooper decided that everybody in the hospitality industry was not essential, which even though I'm a lawyer first, still kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And you think about all the restrictions there were, and we were all scared, right? And that's what the justices say in this opinion. They talk about what's some of the language in this? Executive officials across the country issued emergency decrees on a breathtaking scale. Governors and local leaders imposed lockdown orders forcing people to remain in their homes. They shuttered businesses and schools, public and private. They closed churches even as they allowed casinos and other favored businesses to carry on.
But I don't remember those being open, like casinos and stuff. I feel like those at some point at least got shut down too.
We ain't got a lot of casinos around here to comment on it personally, but
yeah, I don't remember. I do remember. Of course, we operate a law firm that was determined to be essential, so the law firm was opened, and we didn't work from home. We were at the law firm meeting with people. Court was different for a while. Remember, the courthouse was closed for a little bit.
Well, naturally, when you've got different places making different regulations, there's going to be some inconsistencies in the application and how different governors apply it. And I'm sure there were some head scratchers too, right? Like I'm sure there's places where different industries got favorable treatment for no real good reason. But legal work is very important.
It is.
It's very important.
I don't want to undermine that.
I remember how uncertain we were, right? Like there was so much uncertainty for you talked about everyone was scared. And, I guess that's one way to put it, but we didn't know it was going to happen. Nobody, we didn't know that we were going to. I remember waiting to find out if we were going to be deemed essential or if we were just going to have to just close it up and shut it, just head on home.
You had all these special interest groups, these unions, these, there was the North Carolina Bar Association, there was the Realtors Association. There's people arguing and lobbying. We knew that some things were going to be deemed non-essential. And so everybody was lobbying like crazy to be essential, and a ton of bars and a ton of restaurants, went out of business. The non-essential businesses A lot of them failed. They haven't come back. You know, the hospitality industry has not truly recovered by any means. But it's just until I read that. So that's what I did. We're coming up on our second year being over, right? So I'm getting things lined up for our third year as a show. And I just remember me and Joe sitting across from each other in the studio. All right, we got a new COVID law.
Like every week, man.
Yeah,
it was every week.
We got a new restriction. Is this legal? Is this not legal? And it feels like it was so long ago. But that's what happens, right? You just keep going and you forget stuff. But the Supreme Court here is saying, I imagine he was shaking his fist in the air and he's like, never forget, But it was crazy,
scary, and I know some of the decisions, in retrospect, could have been overkill based on what we now know from science and whatnot. But at that time, it was for the protection of the citizenry, and that's what a society is, though, is making those decisions and giving up certain rights to protect other rights, to protect each other. Without that social contract, the other option is just anarchy. So,
well, he was saying we're only, you're only one. I don't know how he put it. I don't have it in front of me, but one threat, right? You're only one threat away in a democracy. You're only one threat away from being scared into some sort of, I don't know, dictatorship, right? And you're only, what they say, you're only 12 hours without a meal from anarchy, right? Those are the two sides. So if you go hungry long enough, it's anarchy. And if something happens where you're too scared, everybody's willing to kind of be in a kind of throw democracy out the window. So I don't know, definitely interesting how things have changed in a very short amount of time.
Very, very short amount of time, man.
Virginia at that time. I immediately went to work from home and stayed in my living room for 9 months. So it was definitely a different perspective. And the non-essential businesses on our street, just one would close each month during that time period. And yeah, a lot of them haven't reopened.
I remember we went to Vegas. We went to Tampa. We went to a lot of places.
We did go to Vegas. I was there.
That's right.
I can vouch for.
We went a couple places where you could live normally and people weren't dying in the streets.
I remember that was but see, it's funny, man. It's not funny, but it seems like there was a little hiccup there where that was the case, and then we kind of backslid a little bit there.
We did.
It was I think we caused that going to Vegas. I remember the last day we were there, they're like, this is the epicenter of the world of COVID.
I think I stopped.
I was in Vegas
scared.
a week or two before the two of you. Actually, 2 years ago this weekend to get married by Elvis. And it was the first weekend that they were open from COVID. So it was fun.
I stopped being scared of COVID after Joe got it for the 19th time.
Yeah. My body was
Joe's
a great
fine.
incubator for
There's
all of these
nothing
new
wrong with
variants. I wasn't doing great that first time. That second time, it was not as bad.
Yeah.
That third time,
The first one was real COVID. It wasn't
my
the,
eighth time
variants.
was nothing.
I was going to say, for the record, Joe, how many times did you have COVID?
Oh, we stopped counting, brother.
Yeah.
We stopped counting. I know it didn't want any of this healthy body.
I think the last time
It kept
Joe
coming back, though.
It kept coming. It was I like it in here.
I think the last time
It's warm.
The last time he had it, Joe actually gave COVID Joe.
Yeah, Jovid.
Yeah.
Yes.
Chuck Norris style, right?
Yeah, it did. It wasn't very fun, man. That first time really was for everybody who really had nothing but mild cases, great for you. I didn't have that the first one, but the rest of them, they're pretty good. Pretty good. It's fine.
The Outlaw Lawyers, Josh Whitaker and Joe Hamer. And you're listening to, again, The Outlaw Lawyer. They're managing partners at Whitaker and Hamer, practicing attorneys here in North Carolina. Cassandra Nicholas joining us from the Morehead City office. They also have offices in Raleigh, Garner, Clayton, Goldsboro, Fuquay-Varina, and Gastonia. And if you have a legal situation, a question you need an answer to, you can always call Whitaker and Hamer, 800-659-1186. Leave your contact information, briefly what the call's about, and an attorney will be in touch. Again, the number 800-659-1186. And you can always email your questions to the show, questions@theoutlawlawyer.com. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back right after this.